So in today's video, stick around to learn how to deploy either simple or complex applications using Win32 apps in Microsoft Intune. And if you're new to this channel, my name is Harry Louts. I'm a technology strategist for Microsoft. And the goal of this channel is to really help you learn technology, but also show you something that will hopefully help you or your organization. So we're going to look at actually deploying Adobe Acrobat Reader because I think a lot of you are probably in a scenario you've had to deploy this to your fleet of Windows 10 machines. So we're going to go through a few things. We're going to look at actually preparing your files for Microsoft Intune and what that takes. We're then going to create the application in Microsoft Intune, and then we're going to look at just deploying it and the end user experience. So let's go ahead now and dive into that first stage and look at how you can prepare an application for Microsoft Intune. Okay, so first up, you can't just go ahead and just upload this MSI or executable straight off the bat into the Win32 application option. We've actually got to convert this file or prepare this file into an Intune Win file. So there's a couple of things we want to do for that. Well, firstly, is really kind of a planning thing, is that we want to make sure that we've gathered the application or the install media that we need. And then you've gone ahead and tested it. So tested it installs and uninstalls with the correct, kind of command line parameters. So what I actually did is I downloaded the Adobe Reader DC. I then extracted the executable. And then under my source files here, I've got all the executable file, the MSI file, and MSP. And you also notice an MST file as well. And I'm showing this because this gives you an example of kind of that complex Win32 application. So I actually downloaded the Adobe customization tool and from there said a few things for my install. Already accept the EULA. Make sure you really suppress the install and there's no reboots and don't go upselling any more Adobe products to my end users. All that kind of jazz. And that built me this Acro Read MST file. And then after I had that, then I made sure that I tested all the install and uninstall. And I created a little notepad file here. And you can see it's got key information like what's the display name going to be? Who's the publisher? Again, what's the install? And you can see here I'm actually using the setup exe, and we'll talk more about this later on. And then I got the uninstall string for the MSI executable as well, and also the detection method. So I've gone ahead and got all this information prior to actually doing any work in Microsoft Intune. That's a pro tip. Do the work up front to test that it works so you don't have to spend ages troubleshooting and wondering why something didn't work. So now we're at this stage. We've got Adobe Acrobat kind of ready to go. Now we need to go back into this documentation here. And I'm going to show this maybe for the first time, but I'm looking here at this prepare Win32 app content for upload. First, you just see a few prerequisites. Got to be Windows 10 1607, must be Azure Active Directory and auto-enrolled devices, for example. And then Windows applications can't be above 8 gig. But here's the important part, and this kind of goes through that process flow that we were just talking about. So you can see gather media, validate command for install and uninstall. We've done all that at this point. Now we're going to go ahead and create this Intune Win file and go from there. So up here, you can see that you can download the Microsoft 32 content prep tool, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to click into here, and it's going to take us to GitHub. And then from GitHub, all you need to do is just hit this code option and then do download zip. And of course, from this document, you can read more about the application, what some of the switches are, parameters are for the app as well. But now it's downloaded, we're going to go ahead and go to downloads. And I'm just going to go and extract all these files, just extract them here. That's fine. And then I'm going to take this Intune Win app util. So if we just copy this, and then we're going to move it back into our Win32 app location. And this is important. I'm just going to put this in the root. You don't want to put it in the application folders itself, because this whole section is going to get compressed and then made into that Intune Win file. So keep it outside of the folder that you've got all of your application packages in. So now that we've got that downloaded, now let's go ahead and use the tool. I've now brought up an admin command prompt. And from here, I'm navigated to that same location. You see Documents, YouTube, Win32 Apps. Same thing on the right here. Now I'm going to run this Intune Win App util. So let's just go ahead. I'm just going to do Intune Win App util and hit enter. And now the first thing it's going to do is say, please specify a source folder. And the source is all the source files for the application. So in this case, it's everything under Adobe DC. So if I just copy that, I can then paste that over and hit enter. And now it's going to ask for the actual specific setup file. And we've got the executable and the MSI. I could choose either here, but I'm actually going to choose the MSI. And the reason for that is if you choose an MSI, and I just wanted to show it because it's pretty cool. If you choose an MSI, it's already going to start adding some of that information into the kind of wizard as we start creating the application in Intune, things like the MSI app ID, for example. So I'm now going to head, just put acro read MSI and hit enter. And now it's going to say, hey, please specify the output folder. So what I've done here is I've just done a location called Intune app output, and we're going to put the file in there. And now let's just hit paste on that. I'm not going to worry about this having any kind of catalog folder, so I'm just going to do no here and then hit enter. Now this is only going to take maybe a minute or two on your computer, but it's going to go ahead and go through all those steps to creating this Intune Win file for us. And there we have it. We can see that that went through the creation process. We've now got a notification saying it's done. And we can see on the left-hand side, we now have this acro read Intune Win file. And this is what we're now going to take to Microsoft Intune, and we're going to upload it and create the application based on what we've built here. So at this stage, we've done most of our preparation in the fact that we've got our Acrobat file, our Adobe Reader here as an Intune Win file. Now we need to go ahead and actually get this uploaded and created as an application within Microsoft Intune. So I'm in the Microsoft Endpoint Manager admin console here, and we're going to want to go to Apps, and then under By Platform, we're going to go to Windows. And then from Windows, we're just going to go ahead and choose Add, and then go to Add Type, and then choose Windows App, which you can see in brackets says Win32. And from here, it kind of confirms what we already know. This is for custom or in-house Win32 apps, and you need to make sure that you use a .intune win format, which, we're ahead of the game here. We've already got that built. So let's just choose Select. And now we need to select that application package and browse for the Intune.win file that we created. So I'm just going to go to Win32 apps and then our Intune app output and choose that acro read.intune win file that we just created a minute ago, and then choose OK. So now we just need to go ahead and actually put in some of the application's information. You can see there's only a few fields here at the top that are actually required, and one of them is publisher. And because we've already been, very organized, I already have the publisher in our notepad, so I'm just going to paste that in. And then next on app version, although this isn't required, this is currently the old version. Because I chose that MSI, it took that version. But because we're going to be applying an MSP, I'm just going to put in the latest version that MSP is going to install. So I'm just going to copy that and paste that here as well. And the next sections are all optional. You can choose whether or not you want to put it in a category. You can say whether it should be a featured app. And then you can see you can do things like privacy URL, owner, notes, and so on and so forth. And the more you fill in here, of course, the more your users will, get to understand why and what this application is for. And then even though it's, technically written here as optional, the logo, I do recommend you put the logo. It's just going to help anyone out if they're using the, the company portal application or whatever. They're just going to be able to see visually what that application is, hopefully, from the logo. So I'm just going to do select image, and then I'm going to browse to my icons here. So if I go Win32 apps, I just have a folder for icons, and then I've got the Acrobat icon in there. And I'm just going to select that and hit OK. And that's everything I'm going to do for the basic app information. So let's just go ahead and hit next. And then from program, here's where we're going to specify really how does this application get installed on our users' computers. And this is pretty cool stuff. And the reason I chose that MSI file earlier on was to really show you that here it's already started to pre-populate the wizard with some of those install commands and uninstall command. I'm actually not going to use these, but I wanted to show that as an example of what would happen if you do an MSI. So what I'm going to do is go back to our file here, and I'm going to choose our setup.exe. And the reason for that is it's just going to use the MST and the MSP a little bit better than the MSI will without me doing more work. But you can see that I did use an MSI parameter for logging as well. And then for the uninstall string or command, I could just leave this as it is, but again, I love a bit of logging, so I've just put the pretty much the same thing here, but I've gone ahead and added logging and made sure that there is no restart possible. So let's just paste that in as well. So at that point, we have our install command and our uninstall command for the program. And then you need to choose your device restart behavior. So you can see here that the app install may force a restart. You could mandatory do a restart. I'm actually going to do no specific action. And you can see here, if you choose no specific action, that's basically just saying, look, we're going to suppress the device from restarting after the app has been installed. So that's what I'm going to do. And then at the bottom here, you can just see the general return codes. And this is very similar if you're in something like Configuration Manager or anything like that. 3010 is a soft reboot, 0 is a success. Most of the time, you can just leave this as default unless you know that your application for some reason has a different return code. And then we're just going to go ahead and hit next. And now from requirements. Requirements is pretty much as you would expect. Just does this device meet these requirements? If it does, then go ahead and install the application. If it doesn't, well, then don't install the app. So for example here, operating system, we're going to say yes, it's good for a 32-bit machine, and yes, it also works on a 64-bit machine. We can do that. And then in minimum operating system, we can choose here Windows 10 1607. So if you happen to be on a Windows 10 1607 device and later, then it's going to be installing for you. If you're on something before 1607, then this application won't install. And then you can put a bunch of other stuff that are optional, from disk space, which I could say here is 500 megabytes, and memory, and so on. And at the bottom here, it's pretty cool. If you need any kind of additional requirements you don't see above here, you can actually just go to add, and then you could select from a file, a registry, or a script. So you could go run a script beforehand to check something on a device before you install something. I'm not going to do that, but you can do that if it makes sense for you. So I'm just going to say Windows 10 16.7 above, any operating system 32 64-bit, and 500 meg of disk space. So let's just go ahead now and do next again. And now we need to go ahead and set up our detection rules. And if you've come from the configuration manager world, this section won't come as any surprise. But if you're new to this, well, what we mean by detection rules is we're saying, look, if we find that this application is already installed on this device, we're not going to install it again. However, if we look and it's not installed, then we're going to go ahead and go forward with installing the application. So if I select one of these rules, you can see you can do either manually configure or you can use a custom detection script as well. I'm going to do manually configure detection rules and then do add. And this is interesting. For here, you could do MSI, you could do file, you could do registry. But I'm going to do MSI. And what's really cool is that you can see that it already has pre-populated that for me. Because I chose MSI earlier on when we're creating that Intune win file, it's done that for me. And at the bottom here, I could just do MSI product version check. So I could say, look, if it's greater than version X, then it can install, and so on and so forth. I'm just going to leave it as no for this demonstration and click OK. And now let's move on to dependencies. So from dependencies for Adobe Reader, I'm not going to make any changes here, but if you're new to dependencies, what it allows you to do is say, before you go ahead and install this application, I need you to go check that this other app is installed. And if it is, then go ahead and install the application we're building right now. But if it's not, then you need to go install that application that we're dependent on and then you can go ahead and install Adobe Reader, for example. So it might be like, I need you to go install .NET Framework first as a dependency. Once that's installed and proven to be there, then you can go ahead and install Adobe Reader. I'm not going to put any dependencies, but this is super exciting to see in Microsoft Intune standalone, as we've had it in Configuration Manager and other tools like that for a long time. And now we're going to just go ahead and do next. And now from assignments, you can choose a couple of things. We've got required, which is if you add a user group here, then it's going to force the application to be installed on their device. We then have available for enrolled devices. That allows the user to go to the company portal themselves and install it. And then we got uninstall, which is similar to required. It's just going to force the application to be uninstalled. So what I've done is I just have a couple of groups. I'm going to use available for enrolled devices, just a little bit easier to show the end user experience. So I'm going to do add group. And then what I'm going to do here is search for Intune. And then I'm going to use this Adobe Reader DC available group and do select. And then under uninstall, just for example, I'm going to do Intune again. And then I'm going to do the Adobe Reader DC uninstall. And now any user that I add to the available group here are going to be able to see this in their company portal, for example. So with the group selected, what's also really cool and similar to Configuration Manager again, is that you can then choose what is your end user experience. So for example, should the user see all toast notifications? Or do you want them just to see computer restarts? Or do you want it hidden completely? So maybe you're deploying a required application that you don't want anyone to know about. You can just hide all toast notifications. You can then choose, what kind of content delivery optimization do you want in foreground or background? And then when is this application available? I'm just going to leave it as soon as possible, but you could actually go ahead and choose a specific date and time. And that's really it to the assignments. I recommend just have a look at this and play with this and see what those different experiences are for your end users as you start creating more and more apps in Microsoft Intune. And that's really all there is to it. From here, you can just go ahead and review all the settings that you've put in and everything you've done, and then just click create. And once you click create, now that we had that file that was being done, it's going to go ahead and start uploading that to Intune, and it will let us know when it's ready. And that's it. We can now see that the Adobe Acrobat Reader file has been uploaded, and the application now doesn't say that it's not ready. So let's go ahead and just dive into the end user experience. So let's go have a look at the end user experience. We've done all the hard work. Let's go see what we've done. So I just went to start and then company portal. And the first thing that you'll see here is straight away I'm being told, look, there's a new application, which is Adobe Acrobat Reader DC. And that's what we just packaged. So that's awesome. And if we click into this, now as a user, we can just go ahead and click install. So after you click install, it's then going to give the users, you're going to see the experience where it says downloading. And then in this case, all the toast notifications are going to pop up as well, because that's what we chose. We chose for all toast notifications to be shown. And then once it's completed, you're going to be told that your application has been installed, and you can reinstall it if you need. You can also go have a look. If we bring up the notifications, you can see here that it clearly said, Adobe Acrobat was installed successfully. It also let them know that this application was downloading and installing. We can now see that there's a desktop shortcut for Adobe Reader. We could also see it in our start menu. So let's go ahead and just load it up and see if it did what we expected. And what's good news here is that we did ask for it in the MST to not show any EULA or anything like that. We also asked for it to update itself to the latest version in the MSP. So the original MSI was version 15. If we go to About, we can now see it's version 2020. So it did do everything we expected. It listened to the MST, it listened to the MSP. So that really goes to show that we can do advanced deployments within Microsoft Intune using this Win32 app method. Then the last thing I want to show on here, and we're not going to go very deep into this, but this is just to show you if you do need to troubleshoot for any reason, or you're just interested to see what happened, is when we install these applications, it uses our Intune management extension. So you can navigate to this location here, see program data, Microsoft, Intune management extension, then logs, and then load up the Intune management extension in something like CM Trace. And then you'll be able to see, look, here's what the installation behavior will be. We can actually see what executed on the device, and these are all the things that we put into the application. And then you can scroll down a little bit more, and you can see here that the exit code is 0, which we all know is successful. So that was a successful install, and that was the user experience that you would expect. So let's now just dive in and see the reporting in the endpoint management console. The last thing I wanted to show was just what does this look like inside Intune. So I'm just going to go to apps and then Windows, and then we're just going to go to the Adobe Reader application. And from there, we already can see that I've got a 1 in user and device, and it's saying it's installed. So for example, I can go look at the user, and we can see, look, it installed here for Harry Loughton. That's a success. And I can also click into this, and that will allow us to see what device did I install that on. So we can see that this desktop here got the application installed. And really, that's all I wanted to show. How do you get yourself prepared to get one of these Win32 applications in Microsoft Intune? And then also, how do you then configure it in Intune, deploy it, and what that end user experience looks like? Hopefully this video was helpful. Make sure you like, subscribe, and we'll see you next week for another video.